Hello everyone and welcome back to another classic movie review. My name is Dalton and today we're going to be talking about Fast Times at Ridgemont High. This film is a classic comedy and it's directed by Amy Heckerling, who eventually went on to do Clueless in the 90s. And this movie was kind of like the breakout role for Sean Penn, who very famously plays Spicoli in this film, Jeff Spicoli, to excellent comedic effect. And right off the bat, one thing that I particularly love about this film is not only is it very funny, and it's a comedy, obviously you're supposed to laugh, and there are some very well-written jokes, some great comedic timing, but at the center of it, it's just this really good character movie. And there's really no one central plot, which a lot of people will dislike, but to me, it was just it was like a slice of life from the 1980s, but with some sort of, classical storytelling scenarios that characters would run into to just, propel things forward and move along. So it was never boring or anything like that. But there were an array of different characters whose storylines would sometimes cross over, but you were mostly just interested in each person and each character as they appeared on screen. As mentioned before, you have Sean Penn's Jeff Spicoli, who is the school stoner who has an excellent rivalry with his teacher, Mr. Hand, in the classroom.
Am I hallucinating here? Just what in the hell do you think you're doing?
Learning about Cuba, having some food.
Mr. Spicoli, you're on dangerous ground here. You're causing a major disturbance on my time.
I've been thinking about this, Mr. Hand. If I'm here and you're here, doesn't that make it our time?
Now, obviously, it's played up to more of a comedic effect in this film, but we've all had that teacher where you just never got along with them, and it was always just a constant battle every time you went into the classroom. Now, another storyline that goes on in this film is with two females, one played by the famous Jennifer Jason Leigh, who's still working a lot today, and the other played by Phoebe Cates, who was everyone's crush in the 80s when this movie came out, because this movie does have an infamously famous nude scene with her that has been parodied and spoofed and just talked about ever since it happened. So obviously it stayed in the minds of everyone for a while. When the movie starts, Jennifer Jason Leigh's character is a virgin, and she's just trying to have sex with a guy, and she's talking to Phoebe Cates, interacting with her, and that just kind of their storyline is just sort of exploring themselves in that sexual way that a lot of high school, not just girls, but people go through. And it actually, especially for the time, that it eventually takes a really interesting and controversial route. In this movie, Jennifer Jason Leigh's character does get pregnant by the best friend of a boy who really likes her, causing some drama. But they ultimately decide, we got to get that abortion. And this was right in the middle of the 80s when, doing something like that in a movie, especially one that's a comedy, was very much so not a common thing to see. And I'm sure it upset many people when they saw it. And because of the abortion in the film, it actually leads to one of my favorite scenes in the movie, which is more of a dramatic character portion of it. My favorite character in this movie, by far, is the character of Brad.
Mister, if you don't shut up, I'm gonna kick 100% of your ass!
This guy just can't get a fucking break the whole movie.
Open it up! Okay. Come on! I just started here. They just taught me the procedure, and let me figure it out. Let me figure it out. Come on, shithead, let's go! Get off my case, motherfucker!
And it's very relatable, especially just, being someone who works in the similar avenue that he works in and just, hating his job, but constantly wants to work, always just kind of wants to do something. And just, throughout the whole movie, he can't catch a break, and you almost feel like he's going to snap at any minute. Jennifer Jason Leigh is his sister in the film, and while most of their stories are very much so take place on separate sides of the movie, she needs a ride to go get the abortion, and she says, hey, take me to this bowling alley, and he goes over there and drops her off, and then notices she crosses the street. And he's like, huh. And you're led to believe, leading up to the events, that he's going to confront her and that he's going to call her out, maybe even tell her parents. But there's this brilliant shot when she comes out of the abortion clinic. She doesn't think she has a ride home. She's unaware of a ride. She's just going to find her way home. But she walks out, sees her brother, and stops. And the camera just lingers on Brad as he looks at her. And it's just eventually they have a dialogue scene and they talk. But just for that split second in that shot, it just told you everything of him just kind of being like, I know, I'm here to take you home. I won't tell anybody. It's fine. Let's just go. And they do eventually say those things and affirm it. But that shot just told that whole story of what that scene that you're about to see. It was a really interesting scene in the movie. The Brad character has also one of my favorite comedic scenes in the movie as well, when he gets fired from his job. He goes on an epic rant in front of the customer and then yells at the coworker who put him in the place to get fired, which was just hilarious. I'm not going to steal the actual joke. Obviously, Sean Penn as Jeff Spicoli just has so many famous movie lines in here. Just a galore of all of his scenes are hilarious. His performance is realistic enough to where you're like, oh my god, I almost don't think he's acting, which is just talks to how good his performance actually was. The screenplay was also extremely well written. I feel like this movie really captured the 80s teen. Now, obviously, a lot of the actors are not teenagers, that famous movie thing where they're clearly older. But when you watch the movie, the way they're speaking, the way they're interacting, it felt very authentic and genuine. And you're never taken out of the movie by the script. You're always kind of in what's going on, and nothing too insane happens. Like, they do a good job of being funny, but also not being too overtly crazy to where it takes you out of the movie. Now, Amy Heckerling's direction is also consistently strong throughout the film. She really, really showed her talents here, and the movie's shot wonderfully, it's acted incredibly well, and you really get some, personal connection to these characters, even if, for me, like, obviously they grew up in a different time from me, but I still relate to some of their problems and some of the struggles that they go through. And I haven't emphasized it enough, this movie is so goddamn funny. Like, throughout the whole movie, you're treated to a variety of different laughs, and something about comedies that I just really love, at least particular comedies, are I love comedies that are a great movie first, and then they're funny, instead of movies that just consistently try to be funny, and then they lose their story, and it becomes just not a great movie. And this movie was a great movie with humor, but a lot of humor, and it's hilarious. This movie also has Forest Whitaker in an extremely early role, and I believe his first role, Nicolas Cage. He doesn't have any lines, and he's credited as Nicholas Coppola because he's Francis Ford Coppola's nephew. Little trivia. So yeah, overall, I really enjoyed this comedy. It is like a slice of life from the 80s. It's funny. It has heart. It connects with its audience well. It has a tight script, and the direction is solid. If you have not watched Fast Times at Ridgemont High, I highly recommend that you do so, and I'm going to give Fast Times at Ridgemont High an A. Thank you guys so much for watching, and we'll see you next time.
Hey, this is Chris Schneider from the Great Movie Radio Show. Join myself and new co-host Gabe Jaramillo on a magical journey into the movies with our special guests who used to work on or were inspired by the magic of the Great Movie Ride. Tune in as we discuss anything and everything film, working on the ride, and our original segment, Around the Track, in which we take favorite movie scenes and create our own Great Movie Ride. You can find us online at thegmrshow.com and listen to our podcast available on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and YouTube.